Hi, internet people. Um, so this is the first episode that I'm making for my writing blog, and I'm super excited about it. I'm told I'm supposed to make an introductory video so that everybody knows who I am. This vlog is going to be about my writing process, tips and tricks that I've learned from writers who are better than me, and what I'm currently working on. Also, also edits and proofreading and things for stuff that I have coming out. So, my name's Melissa Wise. I'm 36 years old, married, have 2 kids who are teenagers and think they know everything. And I currently have one book out, which is this one, kind of the cover for it. It's called Hades Queen. It's a retelling of the Hades and Persephone Greek myth. And I have another book coming out, this one, which is called A Thread of Magic. This is the working cover for it. And that is a retelling of Rumpelstiltskin, which is one that I've always wanted to do. And that one is coming out next year with Starry Ink Press. And I'm super excited about that one. This cover was actually made by Starry Ink Press. And even though this is only a working cover, I'm super, super fond of it. Very much like it. And so this is just where I'm going to kind of hold myself accountable and talk to you guys about my writing process and what's going good and what's not going so good. Because sometimes most of the time there's a little bit of both, right? I'm currently working on a retelling. Retellings are kind of what I like to write, although I have done other original pieces that weren't retellings at all, that were straight out of my head. And I like doing those, but what I really like doing mostly is fairy tale retellings, Greek mythology retellings. I like fairy tales. I've always liked fairy tales. And some people grow out of liking fairy tales and some people don't, and I never really did. So what I'm working on right now is a Peter Pan retelling, a retelling of Peter Pan, which I always loved Peter Pan. I read it for the first time, I think, when I was 6 or 7. I read the shortened down condensed version of Peter Pan, and then I read the more extensive versions as I got older, and then saw the play, of course. And I've always loved Peter Pan and the story of Peter Pan. But anybody that knows me knows that I kind of have a thing for villains. Villains are my thing. For some reason, my daughter says that if there's a villain within a 20-mile radius of me, that I'm going to redeem him or her somehow, some way. And she might be right. She might have a point. She might have a point there. Let's admit to that. For example, this one, Hades Queen, Hades and Persephone, the original story, Hades is not a nice person and kidnaps Persephone and is not a nice person and keeps her trapped in the underworld. But whenever I read that, I was like, but what if Hades was not as evil as everybody thinks he is? And B, what if Persephone is not as innocent as she's written to be? So that's how Hades Queen came to be. And, never wanted to just rewrite it and keep the same details and not kind of put my own spin on it. So that's what I did. And then with A Thread of Magic, which is a retelling of the Rumpelstiltskin's fairy tale, I always thought, why is he necessarily the bad guy? He's the villain of the fairy tale and wants to take the queen's baby, but I always had questions about that. Why does he want the queen's baby, number one? And two, why is he considered the villain? First of all, he saved the miller's daughter and spun the straw into golden thread, which is what she needed to have happen to save her life. And he did that. And did what she needed to do in order for her to survive. And the last payment that what she offered up was her firstborn. She offered. And then he makes the deal with her where she has to guess her name and she has to guess his name and all that. So A Thread of Magic is a retelling of that. And again, I don't like to leave the villain because that's boring. And I'd much rather talk about how the villain is not the villain and how the villain is really the nice guy and is really the redeemable character who knows what's going on, And they say that villains, the best villains never think of themselves as villains. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with a lot of my villains. So I'm working on this Peter Pan retelling that I'm currently just stuck on in a lot of different ways. In my retelling, James Hook, Captain Hook, is the main character, and he's not the villain, and that there is this insidious darkness that's spreading over Neverland, and only he and Tinkerbell, the fairy who is attached to Peter Pan, are the only ones that really see it, and nobody else in Neverland can see it, including Peter Pan himself. And I made so many cuts to this story. When I write something, I usually have to rewrite the first 3 chapters at least 3 times. If I only have to rewrite it, the first 3 chapters 3 times, I'm doing pretty good. That's a pretty good number for me. But I've had to rewrite the beginning chapters of this book, which I'm calling, the working title's Hook, because I don't have a title for it yet. I've had to rewrite them 4 or 5 times, and I'm still not quite happy with them. They're still not quite where they need to be to make me happy. So yeah. And so this weekend I ended up cutting a lot of things out of the Hook retelling. I've cut entire chapters out, and I've cut entire characters out. Characters that I thought were going to be essential to the storyline, and I thought this person's going to be very important. It's going to go on to the end of the story. I've just cut her out entirely. And it's really frustrating, I think, as a writer when you're really attached to my storyline, because this is, I'm 36 years old now. This is a story that I've been writing in my head since I was 20, probably, if not earlier than that. And so now this year I've decided I need to sit down and actually try and write this. But this is a story that I've been writing in my head for a very long time. And I've had a certain outline that I've had. This is what's going to happen. This sequence of events is going to happen. And when you have an outline for that long and you think you know what's going to happen, I'm very attached to this outline, and I want this outline to go the way that I want it to go. But when you rewrite chapters over and over again and it's just not working, it's just not coming together and feeling the way that you want it to feel. Sometimes you gotta make cuts, And I was very attached to this character of Michaela. Her name's Michaela Darling, and she was the daughter of John Darling. And I thought she was going to be super important to the story, but actually I just kept getting hung up on her. And so, I had to look at my own character and go, I'm sorry, you got to go. Because I just trying to maneuver the story around her was not working out for me. So she has hit the cutting room floor and she is no longer going to be in the story. And, it's okay. And I think that after I cut her out of the story entirely, I wrote so much more than I had been writing or had written prior to cutting her out of the story. So that's a good sign that she needed to go and she needed to not be in the story anymore. But they I cannot do the story that I was going to do because without her as a character, then that makes it so the outline that I have had for so long is not going to work anymore. So I kept the epilogue, or the prologue. Sorry, I haven't had coffee yet. I kept the prologue very much, and I had written that some time ago, and I'm happy with the prologue. The prologue didn't really have to change, however, the rest of the story is going to have to change. So I don't know where exactly Hook is going to end up going without her as a central character. And that, in a way, it kind of frees up a lot of stuff that I can do now that I don't have to worry about what is going to happen to this character. But at the same time, I was really attached to her as a character. So, but sometimes you just got to make cuts, Stephen King. I've been recently listening to his not his novel or his essay on writing called On Writing. And, he says, kill your darlings sometimes. And that's what I've been doing this weekend. I've killed my darling. And it's not as easy as it seems sometimes. Sometimes I can cut characters, but they weren't really a central character, so it's fine. But when I cut out a central character that I thought the entire story was going to wrap around, yeah, that definitely changes. It definitely changes the story a lot. So I think I'm going to try and release these. I'm going to try and keep them pretty short, but I'm going to try and release one every week. I'm going to try and release them on Monday, and I'll talk about different things. I'll talk about what I'm working on, or I'll talk about what I have finished, and I'll talk about also what I'm reading, not just what I'm writing. Because I'm an author, I like to talk about other authors that I enjoy reading. And we'll talk about this one because I have not received the edits back for A Thread of Magic yet. I'm a little nervous about getting the edits back. With Hades Queen, there were very few edits that I had to make. They didn't want a lot changed. So it was a pretty easy process to edit that one. But this one, Hades Queen, is only 44,000 words. So I think it qualifies more as a novella, maybe more than a full-size novel. And that one took me about a year and a half to write. But A Thread of Magic over here, that one took me a little over 2 years to write. And it's, I don't know what it's going to be when the edits are finished, but when I sent it off to the publisher, to Star Inc., it was about 95,000 words. So definitely novel length for that one. So I don't know whether the edits are going to be more vigorous or whether it's going to be a more easy process, but we'll do probably a post about this one and a post about this one, and a post about I have another novella that I'm releasing to email subscribers, newsletter subscribers, that's called A Dragon's Heir, and that's an original piece, not a retelling. So we'll talk about probably that one a little bit. I'll probably do at least one post about that one. And let's see, what am I reading right now? I am reading this. This is called Abandon, and it's by Meg Cabot, who also wrote the Princess Diaries series. And this is a comfort read for me. I'll go back to this book over and over again. This is also a retelling of, kind of a retelling of the Hades and Persephone myth, but with a modern twist, where it's modern time and she, the main heroine, has a near-death experience and meets a death deity. So this is what I'm reading, and I would highly recommend it to anybody who's interested in Greek story retellings or Hades and Persephone retellings. It's also kind of a coming of age type story. But I thought with each book that I recommend, I'll read one quote and kind of give you a quote that I kind of feel like it gives you kind of, a synopsis. The front of the book says, "She knows what it's like to die." And the back of the book says, "Now death wants her back." So highly recommend this one. It's a favorite of mine, from Meg Cabot. And let's see. The quote that I'm going to read is it's kind of far into the book, kind of towards the end. And it says, "Maybe I had been fooling myself. Maybe a girl, not even an NDE, can have a normal relationship with a death deity. But why does she have to be punished for trying?" So this is really, this is going to be my first recommendation. It's the first in a trilogy, and I've read the entire trilogy many times, and it's definitely a favorite of mine. So if you're into retellings or you're into kind of darker romance, definitely try and pick this up. The first time I read it as an ebook, and then I finally got the paperback. So I was pretty happy about that. And it's got a beautiful cover, and it's also got a very good story inside. So that's what I'm reading right now. So if you want to chime in, and if you want to follow my writing journey, or if you have tips and suggestions for me, I'm always open to tips and suggestions. Let me tell you, not a single one of these titles have I come up with on my own. I cannot come up with book titles. These two my husband came up with for me and I used. I, for some reason, cannot come up with a book title, even when the book is finished. Can't do it. So if you have suggestions for me about maybe she hasn't thought about this, or you have suggestions when I talk about the plot holes that I'm going to write or the corners that I'm going to write myself into, because I do all the time and I don't know how to get myself out of them most of the time, chime in and let me know, because I'm always up for people going, "Hey, I can fix that plot hole," or, "Hey, you wrote yourself into a corner here and here's how to get out of it." Let me know, because I'm all for those suggestions, because I need them. Or if you have title ideas, or if you're like a person that's good with coming up with titles, which I am not, I'm all for those too. So this will be my introductory video. next week will be a different video. I think next week we'll probably talk about hook a little bit more, and we'll talk about what I'm stuck on, what I'm not stuck on, or maybe what I fixed. Let's hope that I can fix some things. So yeah, let me know. And I'll try and post these every Monday in the morning. So let me know. Bye.